Ron.
Fleming, I hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yep. Great to
Nobody
see
else
you.
is here. I mean, I'm shocked.
I'm shocked too. I don't know. But the right
Shocking that
people
I'm
will
here,
show
but
up.
pardon?
The right people will show up at the right time.
Yes, exactly.
Hello, Sophie. So how are things, Ron? You have light behind you, but one can still sort of see you.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, everyone.
Well, we can pretend it's a signal from God.
The strong signal. Let's see.
Yep. Something is trying to come through.
Well, there's only one way to do this.
Well, hello, lovely people.
Hi.
Why can't I hear?
You can't hear us? You still can't hear? I don't know why.
Test 1, 2, 3. Testing. No.
I got it.
Okay. All right. Hey, Heiner. Cool hat. You're dressed warmly like me. You're not hearing anything, Heiner? Well, that seems to be a problem today. Testing. Hello. Hello. You're good. Okay. All right. So today it's about the emerging future, loosely connecting in with Theory U. I don't know how familiar you all are. If anybody really doesn't know anything, well, I'll give a few hints. So Theory U is a model developed by Otto Scharmer, and he has the Presencing Institute, and he does some courses through MIT, which are pretty big. They're free online courses, which are mostly revolving around Theory U. And Theory U is essentially a model of how we interact, or how a group of people can go deeper and get something more out of it, like we're doing here. And one way of looking at it, I posted a couple of charts. Like there are several levels in that model of either listening or talking or conversing. And part of the purpose of this group is to get to the deepest level, number 4. So I'll just quickly describe the other ones. So like the first level is like we're just sort of speaking from habit, like what normally happens. Hi, Tammy. So the first level is just I'm just saying what I normally say, and people are just listening in order to confirm that, oh, everything is sort of normal, and there's just sort of polite phrases, or just checking that everybody's following the rules and doing what we always do, kind of thing. And level 2 of listening or conversing is that trying to get one's ideas through. Like I have some good idea and I really would like to present it well to you guys, and I hope you'll like it. And some of you might have some other ideas and you present them, and we listen rationally and we try to sort of pick the best idea, which could also be a constructive meeting in itself. The next level would be more empathic. We're trying to include everybody. We're trying to get all the stakeholders involved and get everybody's opinions and feelings about what's going on, so that we can sort of have a sense of the whole. And all of these are good in various ways, but also one can go deeper with it. And hi, Heidi. And what we could call the 4th level is more generative. That's more we together quietly look at what's trying to come through, what's trying to happen, which kind of future is trying to emerge through us. And that can be difficult to get to, and nobody really necessarily succeeds in being there all the time. So any kind of conversation like here is a mix, where some of the time we're just sort of saying the same old thing. Sometimes we're trying to get our idea heard or listen to what somebody else is saying. Sometimes we're trying to be inclusive and get somebody else's feelings. And some of the time we succeed in being witness to what's trying to happen. And part of this experiment is, I hope, to become better at having that happen more of the time. But part of the difficulty is there's no direct recipe for doing that. In the Theory U system, there are some exercises, and we've done some of them already in the past, like we've done mirroring exercises, which is one way of developing our sense of what's actually happening, what does this group feel like, what's going on. So I don't know what exactly we're going to do today, other than find a way of getting closer to letting it happen.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
I've missed you guys very much. I'm sorry I haven't been here for a little while. I did watch the last session, and it was so beautiful. I could really feel that this group has been together long enough to really be able to listen to each other. And it just had that really gorgeous spaciousness that I think is that generative way. And so I just wanted to, just share a little bit about my experience in watching that last session, because I was like, wow. And it felt also like I could feel the family of us, and how, over the last, what is it, a year and a half, almost 2 years or so. Anyways, it's been a good long track of getting to know each other and sharing, and it felt really powerful to watch it. And even though I wasn't in it, I felt like I was. So, it's lovely to be here and to see everyone.
I've been away a lot. I'm not even sure. It's been long enough that I'm not sure if it's longer than you've been away, Tammy. Probably has been. And I've been immersed in life's travails, and including hospitalizations, fires, power failures. At least we were through all that, we've done a little bit better probably than most of the people in Puerto Rico, though. So, and now I just finally felt that I had a moment to just sort of check in with everybody. So I'm here, and I thought there was something else I was going to say. Well, I guess I was just going to add that in the level 3 of the U, speaking from seeing myself through the eyes of another as part of the whole. I've had the experience, and do have the experience of something like that, but it's slightly different. It's won't go into the whole long story of how I started getting into doing this, but now it's almost habitual that if I'm collaborating with somebody or just with somebody, maybe in some cases, I will try to not just see that person and what we might think of as empathetically, which is still kind of a third person thing. I feel your pain and I feel you and so forth. But instead it's the experience of I feel that I experience, quote, you, unquote, as in first person. And through doing that, I think I've also been able to sometimes have the experience of feeling the group in the first person. So it's a little bit abstract, but if I start getting concrete, I'll be talking for too long. So thank you.
Well, maybe I speak that through this experience with Tammy and Fleming, more than a year ago, I came to settle down a little bit. My unrest is still there. The more I'm on pension, like a mini pension, the more I'm full of unrest and exhausting myself. But I really like to come whenever possible. I also missed some of the sessions, but the thing here on Otto, I really had to come because Otto was also in the environment in Berlin and Ulm, School of Design, to really do what we called work camps and workouts, taking students for 1 week away from the city to the small town of Ulm, where Einstein was born. So I really followed up on presencing, and I think the issue of communication and cognition linked to compassion is something I still have a long way to go, but I told it to Tammy, I think in our first encounters, when I always had the problem of having to do 3 other things besides, and making another red herring and telling another story, I now feel at least this hour, I try to be at home, even when this time, 5 o'clock, our European time, is the most competitive and difficult. Over.
There is a homecoming feeling sitting facing you and coming back when possible. This familiarity with every single of you, not knowing much of your life, but still knowing deeper of yourself, it seems to me, from a curiosity and a playful willingness to be there in the early days, a year and a half ago. It has become something quite different, although curiosity and being playful is still there. I felt it's been a long way and definitely something unpredictable. And I think it's still very much unpredictable what's going to come out of it. Although the bond or the bonding, I don't know how you say, are definitely very, very present. So I've listened to you, Fleming, trying to understand the implication of the presencing and the you theory. I'm still very unsure I grasp it because it seems still very abstract. I feel until I practice it seriously, I won't know exactly what it means. Thank you all.
Another reference point for me, which is no secret either, is dialogue according to David Bohm, which for me, from my experience of it in the past, have probably been the most tangible feeling of what I personally am looking for here, which is sort of like you're just here together, looking together, and whatever is in the middle of our group, and you're looking for what's emerging, what's there, and you have very little attention on even each other, on that was nice what you said, or you need a little something, or I need to act in a certain way, or I need to look cool or something. You have very little attention on that, but just attention on whatever is there, which can be a topic, or it could just be something intangible that's trying to happen. And I have tried in various ways to create or recreate that sort of feeling, and which for me is a home thing, which is not connected with the people who are there, not to offend you in any way, but for me it's like it's something, energy that's there, which can be there almost no matter who's there. And that feels like home, where we can just sort of get straight to work, in a sense, where work, however, being something unknown that's emerging. And I've found some difficulty in creating that in non-physical space or in a virtual setting like here. It's harder to do than if we're sitting together in a circle in a room. It's easier to create there. Here it's a little, for me it seems clear enough, but I notice it's often difficult, or it needs to be explained, or it's not clear, or we don't quite have it, kind of thing. Don't know what I want to say with that. Well, I just wanted to mention that for me is a reference point where in physical groups in the past, I've experienced that you come in, you sit down, and at some point it just starts. You're in that space. And you don't know what's going to happen. You don't care who's here, but you experience something together. And that there's no proprietary system to that. It's not that somebody somehow has got that and other people don't. It's sort of, to me, like a universal field that's just there for anybody. It's as though there's even no big secret to it. You just sort of shut up and pay attention, and it's there. But this group is also to some degree about exploring the difficulties of that, or of how that's hard, or how that sometimes doesn't happen, or all these other things that could happen, but still weaving in with finding it again and again in many different ways. And I think that in itself is extremely valuable, and that is going places. I don't know where, but that's part of it, that you're part of a wave of something that's happening, and you're willing to go with it, and it feels right somehow.
I like what you said, Fleming. It's helping me to understand it a little bit more. Ever since I realized that this wasn't your ordinary conversation, I feel like it's been better for me to do a lot more listening. And I'm sure everyone in my life appreciates that too. But I've never experienced it in real life. I've only been able to experience it here. I feel like the fact that we shut our microphones off and that we actually have a little space and silence and take turns like this adds to it for me. I mean, I've never been in a conversation with a group of people where people not listening, talking over each other, having side conversations or little side things that they were interested in. So I love this forum. And I also like it when the people who are experienced with it kind of point out certain things that help me to understand more how this works. And it's just a completely different animal. It's not about what you think as much as a group think. So for me, it's where I am going with all of this experiment here is it's just growing something in me that just wasn't even in my life or on my radar.
You see, I got into Bohm dialogues through William van Heuvel and later through Tony Judge, because it was so exciting for us in these workouts I just mentioned in Ulm that David Bohm only got into this. He made something like a transition when he got into Eastern thinking, Krishnamurti, to really holding breath. And we had later exercises with Sarah Bohm, and Tony Judge developed the Bohm dialogues when Bohm was not there anymore further with Tony Blake in making the School of Ignorance with a question mark, because it was like really coping with these talkers. How is it like people like me can talk all the time, and how to stop them nicely? And so the exercises were done that you keep together. And if there's something like a big ego and a permanent talker, which was the bottom line of the last book of David Bohm, last footnote, our main problem is how to stop the talkers. And I feel very much here, we don't need that, because we know each other already good enough that we can say, but in real life, it is still a struggle. And that's why we're really looking into appreciation time and empowerment time into bonding when there is so much nudging around.
First, I apologize for being late, and I'm very sensitive to being late with this because it's all about presence and showing up, and missing any moments of it is sort of like, missing out. So I feel the loss. Second, Ron, I missed you. It's been a long time. And it's sort of interesting for me, the synchronicity of the conversation graphic. Ron and I connected through John Keldon's conversation community. So sort of like conversation on conversation on conversation. It's sort of this recurring theme loop, mimetic center of gravity. And for me, as I mediate more and more of everything that I'm experiencing and doing through a human being experience lens, because that's what I and my counterpart in this have come to. Creating the quiet and the space and the time and the opportunity to connect and listen is just, the system isn't set up to make that easy. And it's like the world around this moment is screaming through every channel and device and outside the window, and it's just literally like a howl. So for me, the piece of this and the opportunity created by all of you being here 100% is just, I think, a really empowering and enabling thing for me, and very much feels like home and where I'd love to be all the time. And figuring out how to extend this into the howl is part of the question for me. But this is, I think, on a connection and feeling level, it's sort of it's more, it's beyond the cognitive and beyond the verbal and beyond the sharing, and even to a certain extent beyond the listening. It's being able to feel in conversation and exchange and being together on a presence level. And Fleming, I think, you're right, in terms of escalating attention and time from a contributive standpoint, synchronous physical presence in the same space is sort of the biggest, most powerful top of the heap expenditure of time and attention. But this is like, for me, it is pretty close. It comes pretty close. It's not quite as powerful because it's missing that tangible presence thing, but I'm experiencing it more and more as not lacking, for want of a better way of putting it. And I'm complete.
I have a question. How many people have done this in real life? Any show of hands? Wow. Does anyone want to talk about what the differences are? Being a little more specific.
Well, I can give sort of, I've done it before, but my dialogue group experience was a number of years ago in California. I went to a monthly dialogue group, which was run by a couple of people who were professional dialoguers who did that for companies and wrote a book about it. And this was sort of their private dialogue group with their friends. It was mostly people who were organizational development people in some form or another who was already sort of attuned to something like that. And the format was a Saturday morning for 5 hours. So we would come and show up. We would sit down in a living room, more or less in a circle. There was maybe 8, 10, 12 people there. And we would sit down, maybe a little small talk at first, but at some point you just knew that it started, like a certain feeling descended over everybody and everybody got quiet. And we were quiet for some minutes. And then somebody would say something. And everybody would listen really carefully, and the room would go quiet again. And somebody else would talk. And it was, not having experienced something like that before, it was very puzzling at first, but very, very tangible. I instantly sort of knew what it was and what to do about it. And the sort of very tangible feeling made it very hard to sort of break that. You didn't really feel like starting to argue or give your resume or complain and at the same time, the subject sort of meandered around. And because of the format that you were sort of in a circle physically, there was very little of sort of responding to each other. Very little need for saying, I really liked what Cheryl said, because we were not sitting looking at each other like here. We were more sort of, you could say it's introverted, but that's not quite it. You're introverted into the space of the group, and you're not oriented towards the other people. You hear them very clearly what they said, and then you let that sit within yourself and see what does that bring up for me? What do I have? And if you don't have anything, you just keep listening and paying attention. And it was extremely freeing, because you could, in a way, follow several threads at the same time. You say what's going on for you. There's no requirement at all that it logically follows from what the other people said. But somehow all of that weaves together, and after 5 hours, there's a break for lunch in the middle somewhere. But otherwise, and then we keep going. But after 5 hours of that, you're just in this space where you're not quite sure what happened, but somehow it's very good and freeing. You feel liberated. You can't point out what you accomplished. You didn't agree on anything. There's no action plan. No new alliances were formed. It's just you were there together, and it was good. So and that happened then once per month for a few years, and so for me, that's a very strong reference point, and what I've been sort of looking for, trying to find in other places since then.
Maybe I also share something. We had in the early 90s the International Peace University, and there were the Dalai Lama, but also Thich Nhat Hanh and Bekar Roshi, a Zen master, or a Sufi coming with 30 of his people, and we sat in such circles. And most impressive was when American Indians were there, who were doing a lot of jail work, and taking the talking stick and then speaking and putting it back. So that was the most interesting thing, when nobody wanted to grab the stick. And so we played it for the summer university in 95, maybe like 4 weeks in various circles, sometimes in different languages, because sometimes it's not good if they are not if there's not enough time to translate, because this translation always somehow disturbs the flow. But if it's necessary, so I don't get that word, it's okay. But otherwise, simultaneous translation was really tough. So we experienced that this old gurus or science policy advisors were really eager to learn and not to speak themselves. And so this atmosphere to really have enough time to be calm is something we most of the time did for 1 or 2 hours, and that was it, because that was our fiesta time, because then the program started or had been going on already in the morning. So we were just fitting in the break around the siesta, and it gave me some awe, and I should invite Farah to it, because she is a woman doing it very often in women's circles and whatever, and she is more peaceful and calm as I can ever be.
Not to be clapping for somebody, but what Heiner just said about that eagerness to learn, I think that every time we've gotten together, and that has been the overarching feeling in the group, those seem to be the most satisfying, or really when everybody there has an eagerness to learn instead of only teach. You know what I mean? For me, that's been most rewarding, and that's where I see the value in this. It's really a cross-pollination.
That's why I'm saying ferment, not a catalyst.
What did you say, Heiner? You cut out.
That's why I'm saying I'm not a catalyst. I'm a ferment. I'm a living thing.
I want to say something here too. I had some experience of the U process, but not very long, only for 2 or 3 hours, and with people who, the integral community in Germany mainly. And I wanted to say what has struck me is the difference of how the levels feel. You really feel it, and you have the impression, or probably it's the feeling too, that everybody is in the same field, let's say. You can feel when the field is homogeneous, or if somebody is out, somebody of these who talk too much or something, it's like a disturbance in it. It is like, something like this. And it is not an intellectual thing for me. It's really, it is a certain feeling in your body, and I can't describe it. I only know that it is different from every level. And yeah, that's it.
What I think adds value by bringing the theory U into it as well is that you can be aware of the different types of level or where people are coming from. And it's not like there's something wrong with any of them, but some people are more at, let me give you my idea, and then I need to convince you, or I have an outcome from that. And others are more coming from, well, let's include everybody, let's hear everybody's opinion, what do you feel, kind of thing. And all of that is good, and there's a point to it somewhere. So if nothing else, we can develop our sort of sense of where are we all. I mean, it's not about just having reached nirvana and being in this perfect dialogue space and then we're done. It's always some kind of mix, but our awareness, at least, we can develop.
Yeah, and I wanted to come back again to this field thing, the space, the we space, which can have so many different flavors. What you are talking about, when there are people who want to make their thing, it's a different flavor of space than when everybody has the same, maybe it's not the same, but willingness to engage or let happen this process, let's say. Then it's completely different field experience, or what we call we space. The we spaces can be completely different, and we are looking for these nice ones which make you feel like something like that.
And I do believe that if enough of us have enough of that, or enough experiences with that, it's not that you somehow have to graduate from having seriously done it or something. I mean, this totally counts. So just from having a sense of what that is, that feeling, which for me is sort of a carrier wave, that if you can manage to bottle it up a little bit and take it with you and bring it into whenever you're in any kind of conversation, even if it's just where people are doing the same old or trying to persuade each other, if you can interact somewhat from that level, you can help making any situation, any conversation work a little better. And I think it in principle, only requires one person to do that. I mean, if one person really sort of gets it, that will transform any conversation. It will not make it perfect, but it will certainly make things flow a little better if you remember that sense somehow.
Isn't that oh, excuse me, the transmission of energy, which we know from maybe spiritual teachers, that create this field for you where you can be in, or be infected by it, let's say. Is that what you mean?
I think it kind of. I mean, it can be a generative thing. I was thinking just being present and listening, but actually you're kind of creating it by your own presence. The others can feel safe to be more authentic and actually tell the truth and get over some of their stuck points and so forth. So yeah, you're kind of creating a space for others.
There's a there's a dimension to that that I've been spending some time in. Between these sessions, I've had occasion to have contact with Heiner and contact with Tammy and contact with Fleming. And so if you see, I've seen you pop up. And they carry with them this field between. And so I believe, I suspect that the field is sort of there to access for all of us all the time. We're not taught or given a channel or a path or a means to access it. And it certainly isn't something acknowledged or recognized by the world around us currently. But it's a really powerful resource. It's a really powerful thing as a I don't know whether it's an energy or focusing experience and feeling for me, but it happens with frequency between these sessions, and it's no longer just a communication or an email. It's like carrying the whole load of connection, relationship, friendship, awareness, and sensing, and really good, like really good feeling and powerful. And Ron, your being here today is really synchronistic, because a lot of Ron's and my past contact was about creating or having a held space for people in imaginary expeditions where they spent synchronous time and then there was asynchronous time. But there was always a virtual place to go to reconnect to the expedition itself in between synchronous time when everybody was together. And and I think that it takes relatively little to connect those dots experientially in between. And the other thing, which is a completely disassociated thing, is that on my screen, I don't know whether anybody else has this going on, but on my screen right now, I have Heiner bottom left and bottom right. And it's like there are two of him. And the sense that I have, this weird sort of cognitive thing that I have going on, is like, I'm waiting for the other Heiner to speak up. And which could only happen in this space and could only happen with Heiner, because he's the only one who could figure out how to end up being present on two different, in two different places in the same conversation. So I just wanted to throw that out in case anybody else was having the same shared experience.
I can explain. You see, I did with my smartphone, but I want to see you in a large big picture. So I took one of my other computers, and I'm here thanks to Fleming and Tammy, really took a place here to make my video production Zoom space to always have the same lighting positions. And as I now can control these things and don't have this audio interference, I can cut me off one time, but we played more than a year ago with me and my alter ego. So if nobody is objecting, it was my alter ego speaking at the moment.
I'm waiting for the little devil on Tammy's shoulder to speak. I'm wondering where the angel is on the other shoulder.
Well, I've got the angel right here, close to my heart, and this is a bull. And I've always had I'm a Taurus, so I've got some connection there. And I just wanted to sort of sit in, there's some discomfort that I have, because there are things that I want to do and say and be, right? And so part of this space for me is to show up as a presentation of my highest consciousness, whatever I'm able to be with and attain, with all of you. And there's something really beautiful about just allowing that to unfold. And I absolutely trust it. But I have this kind of, I've got some wild horses in me that want to gallop. I want to go. I want to like, there's something coherent here that I want to feel strong enough to test. And yeah. And I'll just also reflect that last week I met with Doug, and it was an opportunity for me to be able to share my work and have him hold space for me to articulate it. And holy shit, I was not understandable at all. Like, I watched that thing back and I could not understand what I was on about. And so this was really quite painful. And it really taught me something, you know. For me, the visions that I have for the potentiality of what can happen in this crazy time of chaos and transformation, it's really clear inside. But if I try to express it, it has not come out right. I mean, I think that there are moments where I'm able to articulate it, or parts of it. But yeah, I was really struck that it was really hard to do that. And I've had a feeling and a sense for some time now about this kind of process and about Bohm dialogues before I knew about them, that there is a way that we can be together where we can just trust the energy coming through us in the moment. And it doesn't matter if I say it or someone else says it, but it's reading and expressing that field. And this space and the Global Challenges collaboration space have been the closest that I've been able to actually experience it. And it feels like, what does it feel like? It feels like it's so subtle that you can easily blow right over it and keep talking like I am right now. And I mean, I feel like I'm still in that group flow where but you know, one can easily go over that line, and it's a very sensitive space of perceiving. Anyway, I'm learning and I'm grateful.
You know, Tammy, I can really relate to what you're saying about how you spoke with Doug, and then when you looked at it, it just seemed incoherent and it wasn't really what you meant. I recently went on a retreat that I'm still thinking about it every day. It's kind of mind-blowing to me. But whenever I try to tell the story to somebody, it just seems like a cohesive blather of opinions or semi-facts or whatever, and it really doesn't have an overarching beginning, middle, and end like a neat story will. But I know it's there. There is that story with the beginning, the middle, the end, the lesson. There is that. But I'm struggling to put it into that kind of format so that somebody is interested enough in listening to it, instead of just like what is she blathering about? You know? And I have that inside, that feeling, that desperate need to communicate this amazing experience to others. And I just keep taking stabs at it. And you know what? That's how you flesh it out. That's really, I think, how you flesh it out. Because now I do tell the story a little better. So if we're in a safe space like this with each other, we can flesh it out, and we can blow it, and we can mess up. And yet we're helping each other to bring it out in a way that makes sense, you know?
This inspires me to say an experience which I have lately, that we were yesterday listening to a talk about thinking and language. And I always thought, yeah, thinking is sort of language, because often we think in language. But then when I really look at it, I think I have used language. But as soon as I put it into words, I feel that's not what I thought. What I thought was slightly different. It's not expressed by these words, although I think I had maybe used words. So there seems to be, thinking is more than words in many ways. There is so much more together than when you then, I think it's a little bit like dreams. When you begin to want to put dreams into words, you don't really know how to do it. And I think thinking is so, and the words are so, let's say, poor. And I think we need to create, or to I don't know what, invent, not even, but new words need to be emerging to really cover what is this inside experience. It can be thinking, feeling, or whatever. And I'm a little bit stuck in the moment with that.
There was a teacher of mine in a past life who shared a story. Margot Fontaine was in final dress rehearsal for a new dance that was being presented, and there was a reviewer in the front row, and she did a run through, and the reviewer approached her and said, could you tell me what the dance means to you? Said, well, then I guess I just have to do it again. Right? And it's like, 85% of our experience has nothing to do with words and language. Our culture and program doesn't acknowledge that 85%. It doesn't have value, so it's not important. But it's there. And certainly in nature, all the living things in nature are aware of that, connected with that. So.
I had 10 days ago a very interesting encounter. It was with the Fiji delegation heading the COP next year in Poland. And they do the Talaoma dialogues, which are really compassionate, authentic. And what these modern administrators have been doing to it, calling it Talaoma, but making it a panel, with no breathing, no dancing, no drumming. It was really that they were very disgusted, but they want to make it now as a people's hearing dialogue. And I'm very much stumbling with that, because it is just not right. It is not just authentic. And especially when we look with the Maori and the American Indians in multi-track diplomacy and peacemaking and dialogues, we need the authenticity. that we don't have a panel or a circle, and then someone somehow digests it and presents what the outcome of the group was in his word, how limited very often he understood, but not what was said, but what he can grasp. So I think we should really listen to all these cultural expressions, as we discussed often with Fleming, doing the dancing, doing the walking, really include all kinds of senses and aesthetics. And this authenticity, for me, in tough fighting over agreements and deep drivers, is for me the next step. And it just came when you said so.
So, Heiner, are you saying, this is what I thought until your last sentence, that when a person sums it up as their experience, then the others might be tempted to think, wow, that's not exactly what I think spoke for the group, because my experience and maybe every other person's experience would be somewhat colored. And the thing that you really kind of put your finger on, or the words to one of the things I was feeling about this, about my retreat, was that some pretty heavy duty things went on that were enlightening. But when I tell somebody the story and I'm so excited about it, they say, wow, that really sucked. You wasted your money. Why did you do that? And I was like, oh my God, that's not at all what I'm saying. This was mind blowing, you know? It's good to be pushed to that limit.
You see in these peace dialogues, we have experienced that really speaking from the heart and then being portrayed and cut short and misinterpreted, the real originations felt like an insult. And these people didn't want to speak anymore. And so we are cutting out people by doing formats like the World Cafe, which is ordered by governments, to let the people say something, but it's not the wisdom of the people. It is what some hired rapporteurs are reporting to the big group. So we really have to come to large cycles like traditional people have been doing in the Indaba in South Africa and in other schools where Harrison Owen, creating the open space, has learned as a preacher to really not bring it down to a kindergarten format of conversations, but really have the people learn first to speak and shut up, and then find ways to really scale up what we are trying here with our experiments.
We're getting to the top of the hour. I just want to say that I really have enjoyed what has happened in this particular session. I don't know why, but somehow it's feels very affirming or right for me that what we're doing, and I feel very encouraged.
This was my favorite conversation of all. And I felt an overwhelming feeling of love. Just like a love or a euphoria of being in something kind of magical. So I really loved it.
I also liked it very much. I was running all afternoon to make it in time, and I didn't make it in time. But I promise next time I bring my other twin, and then we are a triplet or whatever the word is.
And next time you shut up and we just want to hear the other guy.
I I felt somebody mentioned the radar earlier on, and that was really a word that spoke to me. The radar, from the beginning to now of our experiments, that it's like being in a fog, not knowing exactly where I'm going or where we're going. But then there's a radar, and it's the sound, and it's the echo, and there's a guideline somewhere, there's a guidance somewhere, and this is reverberating among us, and we're just into a kind of funnel, and we've got this radar. So we keep on the right track. I don't know what the right track is, but we keep on it. And I thought the word was really enlightening. I can't remember who mentioned it, but it's there. Very important for me, like a cement. And thank you for the person who mentioned it, because it's a tremendous help. And I heard as well some other words saying discomfort and pain and difficulty, and I thought that's all right, because we got the radar. So maybe it's a metaphor for me explaining this sense of belonging, this sense or this feeling of homecoming, not only every Wednesday afternoon French time, but as well, as Doug was mentioning it, this sort of invisible bond in between. And I'm really grateful. Thank you all.
When you were talking about the radar, I was thinking, yeah, it kind of feels like we're like bats. You know, we're using these senses to navigate and move together.
We not only need sensors and radar, but also common frames or maps. Otherwise, there's no common.
And so we loop back to the map.
So unless there are any other last minute remarks, I would like to thank you all for being on the map here and with your feet in the territory, with your radars on. And I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. So thank you all for coming. Hope to see you another time, maybe next time. Have a lovely time, and goodbye and good luck.